So we want to welcome you guys back, or welcome you guys to the HiFi Coaching Podcast. This is the Poach the Coach version, where you guys send us questions and we do our best to avoid answering them. So you certainly get what you pay for. So first question, Stephen, what do you have?
Well, I'm not answering anything today, so it's kind of my retainer. First question comes from Joe Lewis, and Joe asks, how do you stay motivated each day after a difficult 2020 and going into the 21 season? Do you focus on daily tasks, or do you look at the larger picture ahead, or both? Well, Joe, I sit here and eat chocolate. That's what I do.
And cry.
And think about Jacob drinking beer and not drinking beer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. I mean, but it's also the question kind of on everybody's mind too, right? Like, we're all in this weird spot of, well, there's no racing. In most states, there are a few that there are, and certainly it's not like it looks normally. And for me, I mean, yeah, I did have a pretty rough 2020 myself, and really thought I would be racing now.
Yeah, but let's talk about you a little bit
racing
more.
In Europe. Yeah. So I relate to the question, and that's what I'm saying here. Thanks, bud. And I really think like it is doing a little bit of both, right? I think in order to keep motivation going, like you do have to have long-term goals. You have to have a good process kind of laid out in front of you. You know, when things are longer than a month out, people tend to lose track of why they're doing it and what they're doing and what all of it means. So I think like having that long-term goal in mind, really creating those process goals along the way, and like testing and look at ways you can get good feedback. I think getting into a feedback desert where you're just training or just doing rides or whatever without feedback, that's leading to, you know, decisions with those long-term goals and process goals, you know, you can really go astray. So you gotta have all that on point for sure. Yeah.
That's it. That's all you got. That's it.
That's it. That's what I got.
I guess if we talked about you more, you might have a little bit more to say. But I really was tuning you out, so I have no idea what the hell you said. But I think more than anything, it's like it's a good time to double click on the sensations that you like to feel when you ride, and reframing certain things is like if you're going out and trying to do, like, let's just say threshold, for example, you want to do a threshold workout. Well, focus on like the craftsmanship or the craftspersonship. I'm not being funny. I just don't know the correct way to say that, but focus on the craft of riding your bicycle and go fast. Pay attention to your pedal and your pedaling, how you're sitting on the bike, whether it's climbing or flats or whatever. And we're in this world now where it's like people are so doubling down on like the quote unquote FTP and power and this and that and goal. Like everything has to be a means to an ends, but like you can also just be in the moment with, this is a threshold interval. I want to go really freaking fast, right? This is a VO2 effort. Like I just want to get up this hill and see what I can do. And without the deadline of racing, like that can be kind of freeing and tapping back into the sensations of like why you started training in the first place.
Yeah, those are all boom. Yeah, I mean they're both like it seems relatively simple, like go out, you know, really focus on what you're doing, have something to focus on, everything else will kind of sort itself out, let's hope.
just go ride, man. Cool.
Yeah.
What else you have, Stephen?
Let's move on. Joe had a lot of questions there, but we'll well, you know what? We'll answer a second one here, and I think it's going to piggyback off of that. off of a lot of what you just said, really. But as an athlete, you're always trying to find the next better thing to execute. What is your advice on trusting in a new process? And that really does go hand in hand, because we just talked about process. We just talked about setting those goals, and we also talked about like the small things one can do within that, right? And so, like learning your body a lot better, like learning to listen to yourself a lot better. That's all part of that process. So, looking at it as, in my opinion, we're all just one big experiment, right? Like each one of us is this experiment that we have to figure out. We have to go in and change the variables, one at a time, to see where we move our markers. For me, I can only trust, uh, trusting or going with some new process or new thing if I understand what I'm doing, what the idea of the process is going to be, and I have an idea of how to market, and how to get results from it, how to get data back and say like, oh, this is good or bad. I think going blindly into a process and just doing it to do it isn't a good idea. Like, unless you're like, oh, I'm just gonna throw this Hail Mary and see what happens here. Like, what's his name is doing like 4 hours of thresholds. Cool, I'll do that. That's not super appealing to me, and I don't really see much use in it. So I gotta be on board with the process. And it's good for anyone to be on board with it.
I mean, that sounds like a lot like the Gen X mantra, right? Like, you're not going to tell me what to do, right? You got to ask all the questions and push back against authority and so on and so forth. And I think that's like that. Yeah. Like, but I would say, like, when you are trying to go in a different direction or considering going in a different direction, you got to ask all the time. You got to ask questions, ask questions. And if you can't get the answer, then it's probably, the person leading you down that path is not the right one. But yeah, ask questions, go against the grain, just send it.
Sage advice.
Just when in doubt, send it.
Amazing. All right, you wanna lead this next one off?
Yeah, I have a question here. I cramp more than my training buddies. What is the deal? Your training buddies are better than you are.
Yeah, get used to it, loser.
Like, step up your game, bro. Toughen up, man. I don't know what to tell you. But we can roll through some checkpoints, right? Like, you can do a quick and dirty sweat rate analysis, which you can hit Google up and figure out a quick and dirty one to do, or you can email Steven. He can send you the math. I maxed out doing my kids' homeschool 3rd grade math. I said, I'm done, no more. You can look at your jersey and see, like, is your jersey white? Does it have sweat in it or not? Like, that'll give you an idea, like, not just of your sweat rate, but like what the contents of your sweat. Now it's a little bit different because it's cold most places, so environmental conditions may or may not be something you need to evaluate. You need to consider, are you drinking enough carbohydrates? Carbohydrates, the people that aren't eating, let's say drinking, eating, if you're not consuming enough carbohydrates, that could jack up just your water retention, absorption, whatever. I do think, though, like, there is a quick and dirty way to get a rough estimate of your hydration needs throughout the day, especially when you're training. And most people are chronically underhydrated. And I think if you looked at how much hydration you actually need, you'd be shocked. You'd be like, I'm nowhere near that. Just roughly, you can take your body weight divided by half or divided by third, depending on kind of the time of the year. You can then divide that by half to see, again, rough ballpark, that half should be like, half of that should be electrolytes, half of that should be just straight water. And that's your body weight in pounds, and that's going to give you ounces of water, ounces of electrolytes. That's going to be way higher than what most people are probably consuming. Coffee doesn't count, beer doesn't count. Sorry, not sorry. Start there, see what you're drinking there. And then aside from there, like, you need to look at, like, what does your pedaling dynamics look like? What is your force production? Are you doing any kind of force production work on the bike or off the bike? That's
so you're saying we just need to We just need to smell the pee and see how brown it is after rides.
I knew your mom would go straight to the potty, literally and figuratively. I left that out because I want my mom to be able to watch this. You've totally ruined that. So.
Wait, your mom doesn't pee? Come on, I doubt it.
No, girls don't pee. Girls don't do that.
Yeah. What I think you're really right about that. You could do a
What did you say?
test,
I was cutting out. What did you say? I was really what?
You were onto something there.
Oh, okay.
I'll never say it. Yeah, your salad, it depends. Model really works here. You could do that sweat test. You could go in and to a physiology lab and get tested. You could order a kit. You could do any number of things. And also, like you said, you can look for salt built up on the jerseys, but it's winter. Like, maybe the only riding you're doing is indoors, and it's probably not going to be like dried up on your body. It's just going to be soaking wet. So like, how do you tell? Experiment, right? Like, you experiment with foods, like salt your foods, listen to the cravings that you're having. Those things can help take care of a lot of that. And those hydration needs are really big. And I think going, starting with a little bit heavy on the electrolyte mix is okay, and backing off as you kind of see fit. And if you're getting less headaches, if you're less fatigued, less drain and stuff like that, you can start kind of pulling back some of those electrolytes experimentally. But I also really like what you said about the force production stuff, because I think quite often those kind of either chronic cramping issues. I mean, if you're cramping more than your buddies, you're cramping a lot. And if you're cramping a lot, like, something's wrong. People don't just cramp that do a fair amount of work. So unless you're not doing a lot of work and you're coming in and going like, I'm going to ride every day for 3 days straight and smash it, and that's not your normal, yeah, you're probably going to cramp. You're going to push that beyond. But the Jacob Fetty, I haven't ridden in 2 weeks, I'm going to ride 300 miles this week.
It was 739, but yeah.
We can't all do that off of like old man strength. But I've even had cramping issues because I had pretty chronic cramping issues, like from force production related issues, like not activating posterior chain well enough, overloading quads, overloading muscles that aren't made to take really big loads. You're going to force a cramp, like they're pushed beyond their limit. So, you got to look at it from a lot of angles, and it's really not just a drink more water, bud, you'll be fine kind of situation. Yeah. But
yeah,
I think you're wrong about the coffee. I'm just saying, you can drink as much coffee as you want. As long as your heart doesn't explode, you're fine. And I'm a doctor.
And then we got sued again. Yeah.
I'm not a doctor.
Let's get to the next question before we have another lawsuit here. Yeah. Next. Should I Zwift race since cross racing isn't happening? Stephen, some people take cross seriously. I don't know if you realize this. I mean, actually, I'm not sure. Are you familiar with cyclocross? But it kind of happens right about now, this time of year.
Is that the thing where it's the pogo stick?
No, it's the quote-unquote steeplechase on a bicycle.
Oh, yeah, no, never heard of it.
Yeah, it would be too hard for you. But anyway, it's been pretty much canceled this year. Also, I don't know if you've heard, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know if we're actually in the middle, the beginning, the end, but there's a pandemic going on. I don't know if you know that, but so therefore,
we're always in the end.
Seemingly so. So people aren't getting to race. And so should they be racing Zwift more? And I kind of think this is maybe the like the I don't know, the intent of this question is like, because I'm not doing a cross race, should I be doing a Zwift racing? Should I race something this time of year? So what you got? Take the ball and run, dude.
First question is, do you want to Zwift race? Is that interesting to you? Have you ever done it? Do you want to ride indoors? I think you're talking to two people that would rather chainsaw a leg off than get on the trainer. However, and I think quite literally, Jacob has a chainsaw by his bike, and he probably doesn't own a trainer. So,
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a long way off, right? I think next season's a really long way off, and I think a lot of people are really looking for ways to kind of blow steam off. So, if you're looking for something to fill time, if you're an athlete that has a real training schedule and you're like, oh man, I just need to figure out how to get me on the bike and not, just lose my mind, that may be a really good alternative to I don't know, wasting away on rollers or riding out in the cold. You know, anything's kind of better than staring at a wall, but they're fun, they're interactive, they can have various amounts of intensity. They're hard. They're super hard. I think that's the one thing that I don't think people really give them that much credit for, but Swift racing is very difficult and take into account like just what happens to your body on a trainer. It's tough. It's a lot of constant load. Sometimes even more than just riding outside. So doing it all the time might be really difficult. Doing it every now and then, especially when your interest is kind of peaked, or maybe in swapping out for some sort of kind of interval workout or something like that, could be a really good thing to do. But again, like, racing could be a really long way off. I mean, even the spring's a long way off, and a lot of people who may be training now for the road season coming up, doing base training, like, is Zwift racing appropriate for base training? You have to answer that question for yourself. And am I just replacing the regular racing now, or am I trying to get ready for next year? I think those really change how urgent it would be to kind of get into Zwift racing. But I think it's a really good idea, and especially from a social aspect, I think it can't be, it can't be overlooked for sure. Yeah, you got anything to add for that?
Nah. No, I'm good. Well, I think there are a couple of things to add to that. All of that being okay-ish. I mean, for whatever. But like, I think also one of the things to add to is like you kind of started a thread there where it's like to replace some interval work if the intensity is right. But I think you have to start at this time of the year with the lowest barrier to entry for your mind, right? So like if getting on Zwift and doing a hard group ride or hard race is more palatable than doing a structured interval set, then that's what you should be doing. I think in general, though, it's a little bit early in the quote unquote off season, because I think even though we don't really know what the season flow is, we can still consider winter to be pretty much the off season. I may be proven wrong, doubt it, never have been, but this might be the year.
All in favor of this being the off season? Say aye.
Yeah. So let's just assume that this is the off season. So I think it's a little early still yet in the off season to be doing a lot of inside riding. So I would caution people there. Particularly if the genesis of this question is like, should I be doing Zwift racing on the weekend instead of going to cross race? And if that's the question, I would say pretty much absolutely no. Go outside, go for a hike, get some sunlight on your skin. Don't undervalue that, whether it's for vitamin D, ultraviolet, infrared, all that stuff is like super, super important just for your health and well-being. Yeah, I feel a tangent coming on. I should pull back now before we run out of time. But yeah, just be aware. Like, there's plenty of time to Zwift race. Zwift racing is super, super hard. Maybe we need to like have a whole episode talking about Zwift racing at some point. But I think for now, just be conservative with the amount of Zwift. Oh, the other point I wanted to bring up is like, I think a lot of it depends too on where you live. So for some of my New York City folks, Zwift racing within their circle of friends was really rewarding, in lieu of being able to go outside and ride together. I think during COVID times, people in super populated areas, it's just they feel safer being in their own space versus like where I live in the middle of nowhere. I can get outside super easy and still never see anybody. So I think that's
With
the
a
other thing you have
chainsaw.
to with a chainsaw, and a leaf blower. So I think that's something to really consider for yourself as well. But if you're doing it just for the sake of intensity, uh, just be careful with the dosage. I think that's the best advice.
Great answer. Great answer. You haven't said it depends yet. So I'm actually not sure of the new format we're doing here, but yeah, I guess we're going with it.
Turn over a new leaf. I'm getting precise and exact answers only. No more. It depends.
Your
Wait a
depends
minute.
are coming.
My Apple Watch just told me to breathe. You really stressed me out by making fun of me right there. I've got to breathe. I need exactly 1 minute.
Every time I pick up the phone, your HRV drops.
Oh, goodness.
Amazing. Okay, well, enough of that. Let's see. Andrew Rockwell. Question is for you. Answer this together. I'm a 36-year-old former Cat 2 road and cyclocross racer. Used to be super fit and fast, but like many, I've taken a few years away from top level training, focus on starting a family. I'd like to get back into fighting form for next cyclocross season, and I'm ramping up the effort on the trainer. As you might suspect, I'm 15 pounds over where I'd like to be. How should I approach training to get my weight down, realizing that I don't have the option of high training volume? I'm playing with intermittent fasting, but I don't understand yet if that's reasonable for someone who also mainly trains at night. That's a good point. How can I also balance fasting and eating to recover after evening trainings? Is there another approach you'd recommend to slowly bring down body weight? Jacob, you want to start?
Yes, stop intermittent fasting
Yeah.
immediately. Stop that bullshit. Next question.
That's not a maybe.
Like, intermittent fasting is really interesting if you're a normal person that needs to do hard things in your life, calorie restriction, whatever. If you're an athlete, intermittent fasting, it's not going to work for you. It might work for a week, it might work for two, but like for sustainable performance, it is not going to work, especially if you're trying to cram in all of your training in the evening and then try to go to sleep, and then you're balancing a new family. You have enough freaking stress the way it is. Do not make calorie restriction one of those stresses. I got heated. I'm lit. I'm just, oh man,
Yeah.
I'm lit.
No, absolutely. You're totally right. I mean, like the thing is, we all love to look at, I think in cycling, we have this huge issue where we go straight into like, I'd like to get better at riding. I have to lose weight. We don't think about what are the necessary things that I actually need to do. I need to increase my fitness. How do I increase my fitness? I train and I eat, right? And I think that like food timing is really important with that. And when you add that stress of training on top of things, caloric restriction can only add to hormonal shifts that are only going to negatively impact you, especially if you're looking at a very limited training time, right? Look at the quality of food. It's probably the most important thing, the quality of food and eating an amount that leaves you satiated. I think avoiding that endocrine limbo, that endocrine like roller coaster, that glycemic roller coaster is super important, especially for the longevity of training and when you have other obligations and stuff. Especially when you get close to nighttime, right? Like we're talking about glycogen reproduction, hormone production, all these things that need to happen at night. And if you just set yourself on fire with with cortisol, then you go to sleep like that, and it's not a good not something you want to fight against all day, every day.
Yeah, for sure. And it's cycling's really bad because now like we can't have conversations about like, hey, if you want to go faster, you actually need to ride more and weigh less. Like that's true, but there's so much dynamics around how you get to that point, that we don't talk very much about how to get there. And for me, it's like for this dude, like, man, like you're busy, you're straight, your mind's going to always be busy, so on and so forth. So I think there's two things you really need to do. One, well, there's a lot of things you need to do, but like you need to stop focusing so much on the weight loss thing and reframe that to like, what am I actually not eating? Because there's actually going to be a lot of things, if you take a hard look at your nutrition, that you're not getting. And I guarantee it's probably going to be greens and it's probably going to be not enough water. So like start with like trying to do more stuff, not less stuff. Don't be like, oh man, I got to cut my calories. Be like, no, let's reframe, let's refocus on what those calories are. Add more greens, add more, water, things along those lines. And then from there, what that'll allow you to do is focus more on your body composition and less on what you weigh. And when you do that and you factor in the time of year that it is, this is a really hard time of year to lose weight because I don't know if you've noticed, but it gets dark at freaking 1:30. So just going into the winter, it's just even harder to lose weight. So like put the habits in place now, focus on getting more of the things that you need. And then you may tick down a little bit weight wise. Stop weighing yourself, just look in the mirror. Do I look like I'm going in the right direction? And then as you get closer or further into the spring, because you have those habits in place, then the weight that you're talking about or interested in losing, then it'll almost just quote unquote, automatically fall off. Then what I would do in addition to that, given that you're training a lot at night, is spend some time, and we're talking like 8 minutes or less, a few days a week, just on breathing exercises, meditation, breathing exercises. If you're finishing, your trainer ride at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, your autonomic nervous system is like bouncing all over the place. So go slow down, get parasympathetic, rest and digest, calm your mind. That's going to help you more than anything, and just stop intermittent fasting. If you're hungry, eat, but just choose your foods wisely. There's no it depends with this answer.
There is no it depends. Yeah, there is no it depends. And in thinking about that, looking at that kind of lean muscle mass, and looking at body composition over weight, in my own experience, like I racing at a heavier weight but a leaner body composition, I'm much more productive in races and training. And I think that rings true with a lot of people. And looking at, replacing some of those days, if you can't do both, replacing some of those days with body work, trainer with an hour on the mat can be really productive. It's not super, energy dense, so you don't burn a lot of calories doing it, but the time spent is well worth it. I mean, you do end up kind of, you end up converting what you need to do, and you can really get a lot of just a better body composition that way. And what's an hour off the trainer gonna hurt in the scheme of things?
Keeps the chainsaw from coming out,
You ain't wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Think we got time for one more?
Yes.
Dealer's choice.
I'm trying to see what other question. If you were a big game trophy animal, what would you be, and how would you best defend yourself against or elude poachers?
Okay. You have an answer written down here.
I changed my answer. I just put that answer to throw you off because my answer trumps your answer.
Answer is yeah.
What's your answer? What do you want to be?
No, you wrote it down, so you have to do yours first.
Oh, I'd be Bigfoot. Everybody's looking for Bigfoot. Nobody can find Bigfoot. So, like, I just have to just go out and hang out, be away from people. That's all, man. Super easy.
Wow. I mean, you kind of are Bigfoot in a general sense, because You know how there's like only pictures of like blurry Bigfoot out there? I feel like all the pictures I have of you are the same. They're just a blurry, hairy animal doing something
those are
weird.
memories, not photos.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I would be a giraffe. I know that people don't hunt giraffes a whole ton, but if I was, I don't know, I would do some like crazy shit with my neck and like, I don't know, smash somebody, smash their car in with my head sticking.
That's a horrible
That might
answer.
get me killed.
Yeah, you wouldn't last long. You wouldn't last long.
Ugh.
So, actually, I think we have 5 more minutes
Sorry,
to
Alan.
answer one more question, and this one's important. So we're gonna get to this one. Somebody sent a question in about like off-season gym work. I don't see the actual question because Stephen was in charge of like this whole like cue sheet, but yeah, tips for off-season workouts, strength related. I think it kind of comes down to first is like you got to find a program that you'll actually do. It's really easy to like to get the most like exciting program in the world. Like, oh man, I'm going to do all this like cool stuff. I'm going to balance board, like flipping 45-pound weights. But if you're not going to do that, like it's the worst program for you. From there, I think you just have like, what does the program do, and what are you actually going to do it? And from there, like, do you want to do it 3 times a week, or do you want to do it a few times a day to have consistency? Because 1, you get the program, 2, you got to be consistent with it, and then 3, what dictates all this is you have to evaluate your movement patterns and your posture. If you're just doing gym work for the sake of doing gym work, it's likely you could be doing the wrong stuff without a critical evaluation. So a lot of times, like people I work with, we'll get on Zoom, they'll send some videos. You just look at a few movements and you can kind of tell. Like you can look at Steven and be like, yeah, he has a lot of problems.
He's a shrimp. Yeah. I have the question here.
Well, I was kind of on a roll, but I'm glad you can interrupt me. That's great.
And that's why I'm stopping you. So the question is, I'm doing an off-season weightlifting program lasting 2 to 3 months. Some heavy weights along with some should I also be doing during this time? Endurance only or HIT as well? My A race is not till early June. So what you said is very valid.
Yeah,
about the
programming.
I
was going, man. Like I had it, but fine. If you want to answer incorrectly, that's fine.
Wrong answer.
I'm going to keep going because there's no. Don't interrupt. The adults are talking. The other 2 things that I would say, the other 6 things I would say is don't put things on Instagram that look dumb. That shit wears me out. Whenever like COVID hit, everybody went home. Everybody was on push-ups. It was horrible. It ruined Instagram forever. Turns out nobody can do a push-up. Please don't put shit on Instagram. Don't make it too cute. Like just do the work. And then the rides centered around what you're doing should make sense. Like you don't need to be doing like anaerobic work capacity on a day where you're trying to do something hard in the gym. Like you got to pay attention to like you're actually training energy systems, not just trying to get big and swole and put in miles. So you have to kind of align those 2, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like force production. Like why are you doing this, and what are you trying to get out of it? And you got to have a flow. So you can't mix in a bunch of things for just random reasons. I'm done now. You're allowed to speak now.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. Going into the gym for the gym's sake can be really counterproductive, especially if you have some cycling goals in mind. I mean, if you have an A race at looking to June, I think getting in there and looking at like what you want out of the program, like you said, you got to know what you're doing. You got to have that flow to it, right? Like I could prescribe, and you probably could as well, like a body weight program for any cyclist. Tune things up. However, there's a big split once your body is kind of acclimated to that. Once you've got the just the stability and strength, then your gym phasing needs to be pushed in the direction that your training wants to go. Do you want to increase VLA max? Do you want to decrease VLA max? Certain movements, weights, reps, etc., are going to move you in different directions. So if you're like, oh man, I really want to be a time trialist, is going in and doing a bunch of fast twitch lifting going to help you? It could push you in the wrong direction, and vice versa. So, that really needs to be taken into account. And I think, you're asking about what rides should I be doing. And like you said, they should be complementary to the workouts that are being done. And that's super, super right. And oftentimes what you see is, gym typically could, work out better going into the evening time, like post riding. The day after, you could do some endurance, especially lighter endurance. I mean, when we look at like how we structure just the riding portion of things, we never do like 2 super hard days back to back, usually in a block. It's usually a hard day, muscle fiber recruitment, where we're looking at doing hard anaerobic or, hard aerobic work. And then following that up by like a long, easy endurance day or an easy endurance day. We're trying to coax those fibers out. We're really trying to like get the body to respond to the previous day's work. You got to think about that with the gym and then moving over to the bike too. If you were going to do a light workout and get a lot of potentiation going, and we were like, oh, I did 20 minutes of just like body weight and maybe I did a few squats, you could go out and do intervals on your bike and probably hit better numbers than you normally would. However, if you go in and do an hour in the gym with lifting and then go try and do intervals on the bike, it's not going to go that great. And you're really
then go do a Zwift race.
And really like doubling yeah. and then you fast afterwards and you'll be fine.
Yeah, just don't eat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really big hammer for the job that you're trying to do. That's a really big hammer, and you're trying to chisel it out really, really, finely. So, take that for what it is, and plan accordingly around these workouts, because they are hard. Being in the gym is difficult, and especially in the first part of it, where you're really adapting to a lot of those stressors, especially hormonally. Don't double down on stuff that wipes you of hormones or builds it. End rant.
Mic drop. Well, there you go. There's what you get for free. You get what you pay for. You've wasted another 40 minutes. We do have a few questions we didn't get to.
We're doing this for free?
Your check's in the mail. It just go out and look every week. It'll be there. Yeah. So we do have some questions we didn't get to. We'll get to those next time. But keep sending us questions, and we'll keep avoiding answering them.
Maybe.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.